Any concern that we risk losing people with years of experience like doctors and let's say scientists?
Well, most doctors who work in actual hospitals and medical institutions have to show up to the office. We know that employees are more productive and more efficient when they are working in an in-office environment, and that's what this administration expects, and I think that's what American taxpayers expect. Don't forget, it's the American people who are funding this government, and they deserve people who are actually showing up to work on their...
It's for people who have gone against him in the past. It doesn't line up. It doesn't correlate with other people who have supported him as people who've gone against him. So why would that not be considered kind of discrimination toward those?
No, I would reject that. I think that President Trump has the right to make these decisions. And again, he doesn't think that taxpayers should be funding security for bureaucrats and for others who have served in our government for the rest of their lives. And again, many of the people you're citing are very wealthy individuals. They can obtain...
Michael Straw should have known better than to choose the wrong fight, especially with all his media experience. But today, Karoline Leavitt made it clear why that lesson still hasn't sunk in, shutting him down and humbling him on live television with ease.
Out there, how many do you hope will take it, and by what percentage does the president want to downsize the federal workforce?
Well, good morning, Michael. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me on the program. This is another promise made and kept by President Trump. He told the American people on the campaign trail that he was going to make our federal government more efficient and productive. And it is a fact that only 6% of the federal workforce here in Washington, D.C. actually shows up to the office. That is completely unacceptable. Middle-class Americans, our teachers, our nurses, our law enforcement officers who keep this economy working show up to the office every single day, and President Trump expects that federal employees do the same. So his order, as presented in that memo last night, directs federal agencies to come up with a return to work policy for their agencies. And if federal bureaucrats in this city don't like that, well, guess what? They can resign from their positions, and this administration is offering them 8 months of pay. They will be paid through September just to simply resign from their positions. If 5 to 10% of the federal workforce resigns, it will save taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. And so, look, we want people to return to work. We have beautiful federal office buildings here in Washington, D.C.
No fabrications, no fluff. Straw stumbled once again with a poorly conceived question, proving he still hadn't learned from past mistakes. Meanwhile, Leavitt responded with unyielding clarity, slicing through the nonsense with precision.
Assistance program, the federal judges put the freeze temporarily on hold, saying the government itself doesn't have the full scope of the programs that are going to be impacted. So what's your response to that?
Well, as I addressed in my first press briefing yesterday, this is a temporary pause on federal assistance and grants so that the Office of Management and Budget here in the Executive Office of the President can review all federal assistance that is going out the door. Again, President Trump promised the American people he would be a good steward of their tax dollars. And what we cannot do is fund programs that run contrary to the executive orders and actions that this president has already taken. So there will be no more federal funding for DEI programs. There will be no more federal funding for the Green New Deal, which is an order from the previous administration that President Trump has rescinded. It would make no sense for American taxpayers to pay for policies that this administration is no longer implementing. So that's all this is, a temporary pause on federal assistance and grants so we can conduct a review of all of the money that's going out the door. And as I repeatedly stated yesterday, individual assistance, such as Medicare payments, Social Security benefits, welfare, food stamps, and Medicaid assistance will not be impacted by this federal pause. So the American people should not worry if they're receiving individual assistance from the federal government.
Like a petulant child begging for a reprimand, Straw desperately veered into unrelated topics driven purely by emotion. But Leavitt countered with solid facts, completely dismantling his arguments.
In response to this freeze action, so should that not have happened? And is that a sign of a chaotic rollout?
No, absolutely not. And I would like to address that. We were made aware of that immediately, and we amended the problem immediately. The Medicaid program is up.
Clinging to one of their tired, overused talking points as if it were his last lifeline, Straw tried to corner Leavitt, but she dismantled his weak strategy with ruthless efficiency.
other than Caroline Kennedy, she's speaking out against him, calling him, quote, unqualified with dangerous and willfully misinformed views on vaccines, and that he is a predator. And what's your response to that?
I would reject those comments fiercely. RFK Jr. is widely respected. He's a great man who has dedicated his life to public service and to research. He is pro-science, and he is committed to making this country healthy again. He campaigned alongside President Trump, and they spoke that motto to tens of millions of Americans across the country who clearly believed in it. America is one of the richest yet unhealthiest countries in the world. If you look at our obesity rates, our autism rates, we should be performing far better. Our people should be much healthier. And that's all that RFK Jr. is trying to do. And so President Trump stands strongly behind him, and we look forward to watching him shine on Capitol Hill today in his confirmation hearing, just like all of the other nominees that President Trump has appointed to their respective agencies and departments.
Just wait until you hear the pitiful argument he tried to make against Trump. Leavitt didn't just push back, she obliterated it, laying bare the shallow reasoning behind it.
Status, they're a dreamer or a legally protected refugee. What's going to happen to that individual?
Well, we will deport individuals based on the laws of this country. That's all this administration is trying to do, enforce our nation's immigration laws. So if an individual is here illegally, if that means they crossed our southern border illegally, or they are overstaying their visa illegally, or they've been deported before and returned to the U.S. illegally, which we've found in many instances, they will be subject to deportation. If someone is here legally, they will, of course, not be deported. That is not the intention of this.
It was a sobering moment for yet another media figure who mistook popularity for intellect. Karoline Leavitt didn't just prevail, she exposed him completely and made it look effortless.